The modern landscape of fame is not a gentle hill to climb. It is a razor-wire tightrope strung over a ravenous digital abyss. For actors, the stakes have never been higher. They are asked to vanish into their roles, to become the monstrous, the meek, the heroes, and the hated. Yet when the curtain falls, audiences are increasingly unwilling to separate the art from the artist. The hatred once reserved for a villain is now a weapon aimed directly at the human being who portrayed them. Tonight, we dive deep behind the lights to explore the most intense and often destructive forms of public rejection. We are looking at the price of performance, the actors who, through a combination of their professional choices, personal scandals, and the toxic currents of the internet, have earned themselves a spot on the list of the most fiercely disliked figures in Hollywood. This isn't about bad acting. This is about cultural combustion, political backlash, and the terrifying blurring of lines between reality and fiction. The chilling high water mark of this phenomenon, in 2025, rests squarely on the shoulders of one young star, Bella Ramsey. Fresh off their groundbreaking, Emmy-nominated performance in The Last of Us, Ramsey should have been celebrating a meteoric rise. Instead, they found themselves at the epicenter of a targeted, relentless hate campaign. Their mere casting was met with a storm of online vitriol, focused not on their acting talent, which is undeniable, but on their non-binary identity and their appearance. This level of personalized, culturally motivated attack is the new reality for celebrities, especially those who challenge conventional norms. It's an example of how the conversation around acting has shifted from critique to weaponization. But the digital firing squad targets more than just identity. It hits actors entangled in real-life legal sagas, like the ongoing complex fallout from the Rust tragedy, or those involved in high-profile feuds where the line between good guys and villains is constantly redrawn by the media. In this deep-dive investigation, we will count down to the actor who represents the most potent and destructive combination of character hatred and real-world scandal. We start our countdown with a couple whose proximity to tragedy and their handling of its aftermath struck many as profoundly insensitive. This is a story about how fame can insulate you, and how easily a lack of self-awareness can shatter that insulation. Top 5. Alec and Hilaria Baldwin, the perception of out-of-touch privilege. Our first entry is a dual-force celebrity unit, Alec and Hilaria Baldwin. The reason for their inclusion on this list is less about a single explosive incident and more about a persistent, corrosive perception of being fundamentally out of touch with reality and exhibiting extremely poor judgment regarding a tragedy. Alec Baldwin, a veteran actor known for his explosive temperament and brilliant satirical work, has been irrevocably linked to the devastating 2021 on-set shooting of cinematographer Helena Hutchins during the filming of Rust. The legal and emotional fallout from this event has been the definitive narrative of his recent career. While the legal complexity surrounding his involuntary manslaughter charges is vast and ongoing, the public's judgment has been far swifter and harsher, particularly in response to his and his wife's public actions following the incident. The core of the public hatred stems from the seemingly relentless stream of media generated by Hilaria Baldwin, chronicling their large family life, often delivered in a tone perceived as trivial, given the gravity of the legal fight her husband was facing. The channel's archive contains numerous examples of this kind of disconnect, including the episode where an athlete's charity work was overshadowed by a trivial public argument. The Baldwins amplified this issue when, in 2024, they announced the launch of a reality TV series focused on their family, leading up to Alec's second criminal trial for the Rust incident. Critics erupted, calling the series an exercise in extremely poor taste and monumentally self-centered. How could a couple choose to monetize their private lives, turning a serious, life-altering legal process into reality television fodder, while the family of the deceased cinematographer was still grieving? The choice signaled to many a fundamental prioritizing of celebrity spectacle over respect and sensitivity. Hilaria's ongoing attempts to control the narrative, including a public spat over her disputed Spanish heritage, only cemented the view that the couple existed in a bubble of wealthy, narcissistic denial. Alec's own erratic behavior, including a highly awkward and emotional roadside exchange with a photographer in early 2025, further fueled the fire. The public saw an actor who was simultaneously trying to evoke sympathy for his legal predicament while also participating in a highly commercial, seemingly oblivious media circus. The Baldwins became a collective symbol of celebrity privilege gone wrong, a pair whose fame and wealth appeared to have blinded them to the ethical implications of their actions during one of the most serious crises of their lives. For the audience, the issue is clear. If you are involved in a tragedy, your public behavior is scrutinized through a lens of solemnity. The Baldwins' persistent commitment to high visibility, often trivial, media creation placed them firmly on the list of actors whose actions, entirely separate from their acting roles, generated widespread and sustained public contempt. This is a form of hatred driven by ethics and the perception of moral bankruptcy, setting a grim tone for the rest of our countdown. TOP4. Anna Gunn, Skylar White, the case study of blurring fiction and reality. The phenomenon of hating the actor for the character they play found its most intense and heartbreaking modern example in Anna Gunn, who portrayed Skylar White on the critically acclaimed series Breaking Bad. The hatred directed at Gunn was so pervasive, so visceral, that it transcended mere fan annoyance and became a psychological and cultural case study. Skylar White, the wife of the protagonist, Walter White, was written as a complicated, often morally compromised character trying to survive the terrifying fallout of her husband's descent into crime. Yet, where audiences globally rooted for Walter, a meth cook, a murderer, and a domestic tyrant, they disproportionately despised Skylar. The hatred was not directed at Walter's victims, but at the one character who dared to challenge his power and threaten his fun. Gunn herself wrote an op-ed detailing the shocking intensity of the backlash. She received death threats, saw forums dedicated to dissecting her appearance, and heard constant calls for her character's death, often using misogynistic and deeply insulting language. This was an actress performing her role with devastating accuracy, and her reward was a torrent of real-life abuse. This is the character versus actor confusion at its most destructive. The character Skylar was perceived as an obstacle to the male antihero's self-actualization. The audience, particularly the male demographic, transferred their fictional frustration directly onto the actress. Why did this happen to Gunn more than to other actors playing villains? The analysis suggests that Skylar's transgression was primarily domestic. She was the naysayer wife who refused to stay quiet and supportive. She challenged the patriarch. This type of hatred is often rooted in deep-seated social anxieties about gender roles and female authority. When a female character disrupts the male power fantasy, the backlash is often more intense and more personal than when a male villain commits violence. This phenomenon was noted in the channel's archived analysis of actresses who paid the price for their roles that profiled similar, though less extreme, cases. Anna Gunn's experience stands as a powerful, somber warning to every actor who signs on to play a complex, morally ambiguous female character. The role of Skylar White effectively blacklisted her from certain projects and permanently changed her relationship with the public. It illustrates a key point. Sometimes the greatest hatred is not earned through a real-life scandal, but by delivering a performance so brutally effective that the audience confuses the mirror with the person holding it up. Top 3. Justin Baldoni, the unraveling of the nice guy image. Our countdown now shifts to a scandal rooted in creative control, toxic set dynamics, and a massive legal war that has been the singular focus of Hollywood gossip for over a year. The feud between It Ends With Us co-stars and director, producer Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Justin Baldoni earns his spot on this list not for being a traditional villain, but for the dramatic, public unraveling of his carefully cultivated nice guy image. Before this controversy, Baldoni was known primarily as Rafael Solano on Jane the Virgin and as a high-profile proponent of masculinity, redefined using his platform to discuss vulnerability and emotional depth. He presented himself as a compassionate, ethical voice in Hollywood, which made the subsequent public relations and legal disaster so much more damaging to his reputation. The core of the issue stems from the chaotic production and post-production of the film adaptation of the popular novel It Ends With Us. Tensions between Baldoni, who was the director and male lead, and his co-star Blake Lively boiled over in the media. While initial reports were framed as typical creative differences, the situation escalated into a full-blown legal and public feud. Baldoni and his production company initiated a massive, multi-million-dollar lawsuit against Lively, alleging breach of contract, intellectual property theft, and orchestrating a social media smear campaign against him. The court filings, which became public fodder, painted a picture far removed from Baldoni's self-proclaimed woke persona. Allegations surfaced of emotional distress caused by Baldoni's intense control on set, his alleged manipulation of the narrative around the project, and a perceived attempt to take sole credit for creative decisions. This narrative was cemented when Baldoni made the highly unusual and widely mocked decision to petition the court to subpoena Taylor Swift, claiming the pop star held key information related to Lively's actions, a move viewed by most as a desperate, attention-seeking publicity stunt. The public reaction was swift. The narrative shifted from Baldoni being a sensitive male lead to a controlling, entitled producer willing to use aggressive legal tactics to silence his co-star and salvage his own image. His brand of redefined masculinity, once praised, was now viewed as performative, a public facade that crumbled under professional pressure. This is a powerful example of how public perception can weaponize previous self-promotion. When a celebrity sets an exceptionally high bar for ethical behavior, any failure to meet that standard is met with a uniquely harsh form of hatred. Baldoni's transition from an admired good guy to a litigiously aggressive figure involved in one of Hollywood's nastiest public feuds solidified his place as a figure of intense scrutiny and dislike in 2025. Top 2. Blake Lively, the mastermind behind the smear campaign. The other side of the "it ends with us" disaster is the actor who was once considered Hollywood royalty and a reliable brand ambassador, Blake Lively. Her inclusion on this list underscores the fact that in modern celebrity feuds, no one emerges unscathed, even those who start with massive public goodwill. If Justin Baldoni's hatred was fueled by the collapse of his nice guy image, Lively stems from the perception that she utilized her immense power and social media influence to orchestrate a calculated campaign against her co-star and producer. Lively, known for her strong social media presence and influential circle, including figures like Taylor Swift, was accused in Baldoni's lawsuit of engaging in highly manipulative and damaging behavior. The legal filings allege that Lively and her team systematically leaked negative stories and set dynamics to the press, creating a hostile environment that sought to discredit Baldoni's work and reputation. This narrative painted Lively not as the victim of a difficult production, but as a ruthless, calculating player willing to leverage her fame to control the narrative of a massive project. The channel's archives have often discussed the dangers of weaponized influence, where an actor's immense personal brand is deployed to gain professional advantage. The suspicion that Lively used her curated, aspirational social media persona to subtly damage Baldoni's credibility without ever directly commenting was widely circulated in gossip columns and forums. The public, always wary of Hollywood power dynamics, saw a familiar pattern: the wealthy, well-connected star using their resources to crush a professional rival. Furthermore, the very nature of her involvement in the project, taking on a role whose source material deals with domestic violence, put her under intense ethical scrutiny. Any hint of unprofessionalism or aggressive behavior on set was magnified, creating a stark contrast with the sensitive themes of the film. While Baldoni was criticized for his perceived entitlement, Lively was criticized for her perceived cunning. She was seen as operating behind the scenes, pulling strings and leveraging her A-list status to win a professional battle. This perception of manipulation and the cold use of influence generated a sophisticated form of disdain, one that views her as a savvy but morally ambiguous figure who values winning over integrity. The "It Ends With Us" feud, therefore, became a dual exercise in celebrity image destruction, setting the stage for the most intense and culturally relevant source of hatred on our list. Top 1. Bella Ramsey, the target of the culture war. At the apex of our list sits Bella Ramsey, the young actor whose experience embodies the most toxic and dangerous form of contemporary celebrity hatred: the relentless campaign driven by identity, politics, and the culture war. Unlike the Baldwins, who generated contempt through poor judgment, or Anna Gunn, who was hated for a character, Ramsey is being actively targeted for simply existing as their authentic self in a public space. Ramsey's breakout role as Ellie in the monumental HBO series The Last of Us should have been a moment of universal celebration. Instead, the actor, who is non-binary and uses they, them pronouns, became the focus of a coordinated, sustained, and venomous campaign of online abuse. The hatred directed at Ramsey operates on 3 distinct, corrosive levels: casting backlash. Even before the show aired, Critics, often those aligned with anti-LGBTQ+ and misogynistic ideologies, targeted Ramsey's appearance, claiming they were too ugly or not muscular enough for the role, a clear attempt to devalue their casting based on subjective, often hateful, metrics. Identity-based abuse. Once Ramsey's non-binary identity was widely known, the nature of the abuse intensified. It became overtly political, featuring endless harassment about their pronouns, relentless denial of their identity, and accusations that their presence in Hollywood was part of a woke agenda. This is a profound escalation from previous forms of celebrity hatred, where the professional choices, the work, are secondary to the personal, the identity. The channel's detailed analysis of the identity wars in media showed that actors who deviate from traditional gender norms receive a statistically higher volume of personal threats and abuse. The fictional and political blend. The show itself featured LGBTQ+ themes, including a powerful storyline for Ellie. Ramsey's performance and their identity became inextricable from the political critiques leveled at the show. Haters essentially used Ramsey as a proxy target for their broader anger at the perceived social and political direction of modern media. This situation is particularly alarming because Ramsey is not involved in any scandal, legal battle, or on-set drama. Their only transgression is being a high-profile, talented actor who does not conform to traditional standards of celebrity, gender, or appearance. Bella Ramsey is therefore the most significant entry on our list, representing a new frontier in celebrity hatred, a deliberate, politically motivated attempt to silence or destroy a figure who challenges the status quo. The online abuse is so pervasive and intense that it highlights the dangerous reality that for some actors, success now comes with a mandatory toll of personal, identity-based persecution. They are the target of the culture war, making the hatred directed at them the most toxic and culturally relevant phenomenon in Hollywood today. We have navigated the murky waters of modern celebrity hatred, from the ethical failure of the Baldwins to the character-driven destruction of Anna Gunn. And finally, the culture war persecution of Bella Ramsey. What unites these disparate cases is the overwhelming public willingness to punish actors, not just for their art, but for their humanity. The rules have changed. The actor is the character. Thanks to social media, the separation between the fictional and the real has dissolved. A brilliant performance of a despicable character can now earn the actor death threats. The fall of the facade. Carefully constructed celebrity brands, like that of Justin Baldoni, are now brittle. One major lawsuit or public misstep can shatter a decade's worth of positive public relations. The political weaponization of identity. For figures like Bella Ramsey, identity itself is a vulnerability. Success in a mainstream role is seen not just as a professional achievement, but as a political statement, inviting targeted, ideological attacks. The consequence is a Hollywood where actors must navigate a high-risk, high-reward environment. The price of performance is no longer just grueling hours and artistic pressure. It is the constant threat of a digital mob, ready to judge, condemn, and execute a character assassination based on incomplete information, manufactured outrage, or pure political animus. For you, the audience behind the lights, this investigation serves as a critical reminder. True power lies not in who we choose to love, but in how we choose to direct our criticism. The line between constructive critique and destructive abuse is thin, and the careers and mental health of real people are caught in the crossfire. What actor do you think faces the most unfair public scrutiny right now? Let us know in the comments below. And make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Behind the Lights for more deep dive analyses into the scandals and struggles that shape the world of celebrity.